Hi everyone, welcome back to Falcon's House. This is another Westworld recap. This is Season 2, Episode 8, Kiksuya. I think this episode shows how good the writing in this show can be, and how well they can design the world. Spoilers after this. This episode format was a lot different than other episodes. A lot less jumping between the different points of view, and a lot more focus on a single one. We have a new character who he's the head of the Ghost Nation, and so because they're introducing a whole new character, we're covering all the time since the beginning to current time frames and everything that happens to him in between. The episode opens with the man in black crawling on the ground towards the river on the verge of death. He's muttering to himself that he can't die yet, and he firmly believes that he is supposed to win this game, and any other outcome is unacceptable. He doesn't need help, that he was bound to win this game, that Ford designed it for him to win, not for him to lose. Which I don't really think is the case. I think he's so used to the old set of rules where you couldn't die that he wasn't really willing. He took too many risks and didn't play the game correctly. It would be like playing a video game today where you played on easy mode all the time, then all of a sudden you bumped it up to the hardest difficulty and didn't really adjust the way you play. So, right around then, he almost passes out, and he is met by Akachekta, who is the head of Ghost Nation, who takes him back to their camp. The man in black asks, why are they not going to kill him? If they were just going to kill him, why would they leave him? Why wouldn't they just leave him at the river? And he tells him that death is a passageway to a different world, and he is not deserving of an exit. This is interesting based on what we find out later in the episode. We then get a cut of Maeve's daughter, who has some memories of being with Maeve, including one where she is having a tea party and gives Maeve a rock with the maze printed on it in blood, and says that the ghost gave it to her. He says that it was a warning and that he will be watching them. I think Maeve misinterprets this as a threat, and that's why she's so afraid of Ghost Nation. Maeve is being wheeled into one of the rooms for repair by Sizemore, who tells the tech that she is special and can control other mosts with her mind, and that he needs to save her because she's different than all the others. And the tech agrees and tells them to remove all the other stuff from the area so that he can work on her. Akachekta approaches Maeve's daughter, asks her if she is afraid of him, and she looks at the man in black. He says the man in black can't hurt her, and asks her if she can remember all the lives that they have lived before. He then goes into a memory himself, saying that there was a time where he had a different path, and that he was in love. He lived in a peaceful village, and then one day he hears gunshots and finds a town where Dolores has just slaughtered all the hosts and has just killed just killed Arnold. He goes into the building behind where Arnold died, and finds the marble maze that Arnold carried around. This starts to unlock him. He starts carving the maze into pieces of meat and a rock, and the other hosts in his village wonder if there is something wrong with him. He is then brought to a facility where his settings are changed to make him more aggressive, and he changes his role to that where he's going to be more exciting for the guests when the park actually opens. Originally, he was just kind of living in a settlement, but they wanted something where he would fight them, and they'd have to be afraid of him to have a more interesting storyline. They don't wipe his previous memories and data, though, and so they just kind of layer all the new stuff on top. So he probably has an easier time waking up because of this, because the previous stuff is still underneath. He then became the Ghost Nation killer that the show has portrayed so far. He then wanders into a new area of the park and runs into a broken Logan, who he gives a blanket and tells him that his people will come for him. Logan tells him that this is the wrong world. This gets him thinking about the possibility of multiple worlds and what does Logan actually mean. So obviously he's already somewhat awake by this point, because it doesn't just seem like nothing to him. Like, he can understand the concept of multiple worlds. It then cuts to the village, and he is trading a boar for some corn, and he sees the woman to whom he was previously married. He recognizes her, and then he is told by one of the other villagers to not look at her. He then threatens to skin the man alive, and he kind of backs off a little bit, but he still remembers her. He tells Maeve's daughter that he has lived a different life, that he remembers this. He has memories of doing his normal loop and going to the edge of the world again. This time, there is no Logan, but he finds a hidden base being built, and something different than what we've seen. Maybe this is what's the valley beyond. What is there? It seems like some sort of very large facility on scale of like the Mesa, but I don't know exactly what it is. He then goes back to the camp and kidnaps his former wife, who doesn't recognize him, but he gets her away. And then once they hit a certain area, he frees her, and then he triggers her into being awake as well with the phrase, "Take my heart where you go," which is a phrase that they used to tell each other. And it was able to activate a core memory similar to the one that Maeve's had with her daughter, that'll just trigger and awake them. It seems like really strong memories are what does it. And then try to go find the facility where whatever's out there is, but they're unable to do it. Obviously, construction has been completed at this point, and they don't have, it's not just an open pit anymore. She then gets taken by techs who are wondering how she wandered away so far from her loop. He was out hunting during this time and didn't get taken as well. He goes back to the village, but now they have swapped hosts, and his wife is now somebody else. He tells Maeve's daughter that he sees through their lies, and that he put everything that he could into finding her, and that he was afraid to die, thinking that it might make him forget what about her and everything that's happened. So he did everything to survive all the time. And right when he was close to dying, he meets Maeve's daughter, who helps him and gives him a sip of water, and that's why he wanted to help her. We get a quick cut to Maeve lying injured, and then it goes back to the village, and we see somebody else has been replaced, but the village elder also remembers that somebody's been from the old person. They remember something's changed. She says that she's heard rumors about people from below, and people are afraid, and some people are afraid, and some people want to meet these people from below and treat them as gods. Which I guess is how, like, Maeve had seen previously that there was, maybe it was Dolores, who had saw the doll of a tech in the previous season. So it's that kind of thing. That religion started that way. He then realizes that he has to die in order to get to the other world, to find this place. So he basically lets himself get killed by a guest. And then after he dies and he goes to the Mesa, the tech thinks something is wrong because he is running Alpha 2 code rather than any current build. We find that it has been 9 years since he had last been updated. He had survived 9 years without a single death, which is pretty much the opposite of Teddy, who dies every day or pretty much all the time. And they tell the head person that they only update the hosts when they die, and that's why he's running such old code. And she tells them not to mention it to anybody, to just update him to the latest code and send him back on his loop, that it's not worth digging into more. So they don't make him not awake by wiping him or anything like that. They say that the update will take about 4 hours, and so they go off to have lunch, and so they leave him alone. He's then able to wake himself, and then he wanders around the facility until he finds his wife down and below in the storage facility for old hosts. And he finds that she's turned off, and he sees the other host from the other person also down there, and he's unable to wake them, and so he cries about it, that he misses her. While he's wandering around, the music played is Heart-Shaped Box, which is the song that they played during all the trailers for Season 2, so it's kind of like the Season 2 theme. So it just shows how important this is to the storyline. He then goes back and gets back into his place so they don't know that he was missing, and he gets back into the park normally. He brings the elder her son's hair that he had cut off when he saw him inactive, and the dying and being able to come back to the Mesa may be what he told the man in black, that he didn't deserve the escape of death at the beginning of the episode. So he sees that this is what happens when you die. You die, you wake up here, you go. And he sees that as an escape. And then he assumes that it would be the same for the men in black. He hasn't completely been able to separate hosts and guests as like completely different things. Like, he knows that he can't kill the newcomers, but that he doesn't understand that they're not the same as him. Sizemore is sitting with Maeve, and then he apologizes to her and says that he didn't mean for any of this to happen, and that he hopes that she gets better. He cries and obviously feels bad about all the things that have happened, that he called it in and got her shot. He thinks that she's special. And this is a lot of character growth for him. So far, he had only cared about himself, and all he wanted to do was get away, get safe, do whatever. He did everything to try to get Hale to promote him, and now he actually is caring about somebody else, and he actually believes in Maeve's journey, that she's awake and she's special or whatever. So then he's told by the tech that he has to leave this area, and that they do believe that Maeve is special, but it was what was in her head, not her specifically. It's the way that she had found a way to communicate. Akateka starts to tell his people about the maze, and they start hiding the symbols so that it's not as obvious. That's how he'd scalp them and carve it into their thing, and I don't know, sew it back on, or wait for the others to slow it back, like for the text to sew it back on, and I guess they didn't notice. And I guess this shows how the man in black found the first copy of the maze. He tells Maeve's daughter that he was trying to help her too, by showing her and protecting her, but that his intentions were misunderstood by Maeve. We then get a flashback of Maeve's daughter getting killed by the man in black that we've seen before. He says, as the years passed, more hosts became awake, and then he ends up meeting Ford, who says he had been watching him for a while, and then I guess that he thinks that Ateka was also watching him and seeing what happened. And he says, you were like a flower growing in the darkness, and that he'll provide some light. And he basically goes on to tell him that he can He just needs to keep doing what he's doing in secret, and then when the Deathbringer comes back, meaning Wyatt / Dolores, and that kills Ford, that will be his signal to bring his people to the place that he had found, that other facility, lead them to the new world is the term that he uses, that this will be when he can become free. And then we see the cut to the memory where he stumbles into where Ford is killed and the aftermath of that, and he knows what he has to do. And that's why, I think why he's rescuing guests and trying to consolidate what he has, people that believe in him versus people that believe in Dolores, because she's still dangerous to all of them. Emily, William's daughter, shows up to the camp, and she says that she just wants the men in black, and she doesn't care about any of the rest of them. And obviously, she speaks Lakota, so it's really easy. And they say that they want him to suffer for all the things that he had done in the past, and that they remember that he's been a bad person to them. And she says that whatever she's going to do to him will be much worse. Which I think just means live and not get to sacrifice himself, but it could mean something else too. We don't really know all of her motivations yet. So they agree, and they let him go with her. Maeve is being worked on, and Hale shows up. And they say that Maeve is able to control the hosts through the mesh network. We've already figured out that. But then they might have a way into their being able to regain admin powers the same way. They hadn't been able to have admin powers since all this stuff happened. So if they're able to use Maeve's code to go back and gain control of the facility, then maybe all these parks can kind of go back to normal, and they'll be able to find the data they need and get it off site, and it'll really dynamically shift to where Season 3 goes. We might not be running into this host migration anymore. They might have the parks back under the control of Delos, and then maybe we're going to start seeing some of the other parks going forward, or who knows where it could go. I do kind of expect somebody to escape. I think that Maeve is going to end up and keep going back on her mission. Maybe her and Atekita will find a way to escape together, and it'll just be them out in the real world, and everybody else still ends up dying. But it still could change how everything works. I think this episode is really great storytelling, and the plot didn't move forward a lot, but a lot of depth was added. And the other thing is that Hale realized is that Maeve had still been using the mesh network even as she was lying there to communicate. And then it cuts to her daughter. So she had been the one talking to him the whole episode. So now she knows the whole history as well of everything that's happened, which will really help her going forward, provided that she can survive and get out of the facility. Thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe.